Hello, folks, and welcome to the Studio for Production at the Creative Arts and Technology Spaces at the Brown Arts Institute. And do we have a treat for you? Today, we are going to be doing a full body scan of the incredibly talented, the ridiculously handsome Captain America himself, Chris Evans, is here on set with us. I know, I'm as disappointed as you are. But honestly, it should be no surprise that we don't have Chris Evans on set. We have got no pull with his people. So we have the next best thing, his action figure. Of course, Mr. Evans, if you do see this and you'd like to get scanned yourself, believe me, we will leave no muscle unturned. Feel free to reach out. Moving on, today we'll be using Mr. Evans' likeness as an object to evaluate and review a variety of 3D scanning techniques, including which produces better images for photogrammetry, smartphones or large sensor cameras. We will compare the results of two popular photogrammetry phone apps, Polycam and Curie Engine, alongside PhotoCatch, which is a free desktop app. And lastly, we'll look at the differences between the photogrammetry workflow and using a dedicated 3D scanner like the RevoPoint Miraco. Before we continue, let's first go over what photogrammetry is. Photogrammetry is a process in which a large sample of 2D images of an object is taken from a variety of different angles. Photogrammetry software is then able to extrapolate a 3D model from those 2D images by comparing the relative shift in features from image to image. First, let's take a look at our setup for this test. It's important to have soft diffuse lighting on the object you want to scan, which is why we added a softbox to our lighting setup. You'll want a very sturdy surface to work on. Normally, the camera would rotate around the object as it takes photos, but we chose to simplify the process by having the object rotate on a turntable instead. Lastly, we have a sturdy tripod so that we can ensure our shots are consistent. Please note that our setup, while maybe ideal, is entirely unnecessary, as you can get similar results following less formal photogrammetry capture like you see here. Starting with our camera, we shot 3 sets of photos from low, mid, and high angles. It's important in photogrammetry that there's plenty of overlap in between the images. The ideal ratio is about 30 photos per 1 rotation of an object. For easy math, we started by using the camera's intervalometer function to take 1 picture per second. We then set the speed of the turntable to about 1 full rotation every 30 seconds. In the end, we had a set of 90 images, or 3 sets of 30 photos per angle. You can take more photos than this, and in general, the more photos, the better the final results. However, most free versions of photogrammetry apps, including both Polycam and Curie Engine, limit their free users to somewhere between 90 and 120 photos. Now let's take a look at our first tool, the Lumix S5 Mark II full-frame digital camera. It produces very detailed images and has better optical resolving power than any smartphone. It's an expensive investment to get a camera like this, but it's also a versatile tool that can be used for photography and video production, as well as photogrammetry. Is it worth the cost? Well, we'll find out a little later when we look at our photogrammetry results. But if you already own a camera, it's a great option for producing 3D models. A few things to keep in mind when you're using a camera. Avoid wide lenses or wide FOVs. These produce distortion that will affect your 3D model. Also, consider using manual focus to make sure that all of your shots are in focus. Autofocus can sometimes lead to out-of-focus frames when used with an intervalometer. Lastly, when you're framing your shot, leave some space around your subject. Framing too tightly might accidentally crop portions of your object as different areas rotate into position. To give you an ideal quality of the image, here's a 27% crop, which gives you full body, and 100% crop, which zooms right into the face. Now let's see how smartphones compare when taking images. We repeated the same setup, taking images from below, the middle, and above. Our media tool was a budget smartphone, a Google Pixel 7a, which takes 12 megapixel photos. We also purchased a manual photo and video app that allowed us to use features like an intervalometer, as well as manual focus, ensuring we got clean, crisp images each time the intervalometer took a picture. In addition to all the tips we shared about working with the DSLR, some additional things to consider when you're using your phone might be clean your lens. It's more likely to be dirty from day-to-day use. In your manual camera app, try to keep your ISO low, less than 600. Also, try to set your shutter speed to no lower than 1/60th, or you might see motion blur creep up in your photos. As you can see, there's a lot less resolution in this compared to the full-frame camera. The phone requires 43% crop for a full body, and 100% crop doesn't even get nearly as close as the Lumix can. But in general, the images do look really good and usable. Lastly, let's take a look at what we did for our last scenario, which was using a 3D scanner. We are using the Miraco 3D scanner by RevoPoint, which can be operated mobily without the use of a computer. Though this scanner uses depth-sensing infrared cameras to make models, much of the setup concerning consistent lighting and stable environment are the same. Some considerations for working with scanners like this might be stay away from the windows where you might pick up disruptive IR signals. Always make sure to check your range and distance before starting the scan. Use the appropriate mode for the scan, such as using dark mode or dark objects. Like in photogrammetry, make sure that there's a lot of overlap in between your scans. And don't forget to set your own exposures of the scanner. Auto exposure can be really bad for scanning. Like our other setups, using a tripod is paramount, especially since you will have to do multiple scans per object. Why? Well, see on the laptop screen the green overlay? That is the scanner capturing data in real time. You might also notice that it's only scanning a small portion of Captain America. This is because the scanner's range is fairly small and limited, so to get a full scan, you will have to take about 6 to 8 different scans, making sure that there's plenty of overlap between each. We aren't going to waste our time with technical stuff, so let's just get to the results. First, let's review the quality of our images, mirrorless camera versus smartphone. Both images look pretty good. However, there are a few differences. The mirrorless has a better dynamic range, leading to smoother color transitions and less contrast, whereas the smartphone's images are punchier with a lot of highlights. And of course, the mirrorless camera just has more resolution, which gives our photogrammetry platforms more data to play with. So, no surprise here, the mirrorless wins in terms of raw image quality. But in terms of photogrammetry, how much does all that resolution and dynamic range matter? We will talk about that in a minute. But first, let's take a look at how we're going to process all of these images into 3D models. For our mirrorless and smartphone images, we are going to run each set of 90 photos independently through 2 cloud-based platforms, Polycam and CuriEngine, as well as PhotoCatch, which is a free Mac desktop app. We chose the base settings in each platform to show you what the free versions of each are capable of. With our 3D scanner, we're using RevoPoint's proprietary software called RevoScan 5. It's worth mentioning that the post-processing of 3D scans is considerably more elaborate, and so kind of its own thing for the purposes of this video. So, to the results. Again, we have a full-frame camera versus a smartphone for image quality. But how much of a difference does that make when making 3D models? Here we can see both the full-frame and smartphone 3D models with the photorealistic textures applied. Each is really good. Now let's see what each mesh looks like without the texture. Both do a good job of rendering detail for a basic model, with the full-frame, unsurprisingly, edging out against the smartphone. Though the fine details in the face and brow are lost in both. What is a surprise is the margin of difference between the two is very small. So if you don't have a full frame camera, don't worry, your smartphone is practically just as good. Now let's take a look at the results based on the software that we used. First up are our online cloud-based apps, CuriEngine followed by Polycam, and both are using the full frame set of photos. Textures are both very good, with Polycam having just a bit more contrast and the plastic material has a glossier finish to it. In terms of the mesh themselves, they are very, very close. Polycam having a slightly tighter triangular mesh and captures the smallest amount of detail in the face brow area. But realistically, in terms of 3D printing, this extra detail is negligible, all but for the smallest layer height. So if you're going to go cloud-based and deciding between these two, you should really look at factors other than quality to make your decision. But what about desktop apps? Are they any better than their online counterparts? We decided to try using Photogrammetry. Why? Because we're Mac users, and it's free. And the results are shocking. Photogrammetry is considerably better than either Curie or Polycam. Sure, we would have expected a professional photogrammetry software like Meshroom on a PC to deliver great results, but Photogrammetry is basic freeware. Take a look yourself. Finally, we have our last matchup, photogrammetry versus 3D scanning, which will come out on top. So a little bit about the 3D scanning process. The field of view of a laser in a scanner is very narrow, meaning you can only capture small areas of the object at a time. So while we were able to get all of our full body photos taken in 3 revolutions, the scanner took closer to 6 to 8 to get, well, body parts. You then have to go into scanner software like RevoPoint and process and then attach all of the body parts together, which is considerably more laborious than the photogrammetry methods we've been using. Unfortunately, the results are pretty bad. The texture is over-processed and muddy, but the mesh is where we have the most problems. The scanner wasn't able to get into all the crevices of the model, leaving us without a watertight mesh. Sure, the object we're scanning does have some complexity, but isn't that what you drop $1,200 on a scanner for? All in all, for the amount of effort that we put in, the Miracle was a disappointment, and I can't really recommend it. But we have had excellent results with other scanners, including the Pop 2 by RevoPoint, so I wouldn't give up on 3D scanners altogether. They're just very specialized tools. That being said, the results were pretty clear. Unless you have professional needs, and even then, your smartphone is more than capable of taking 3D scans. Admittedly, most of the scans that we ended up producing are better as digital assets for 3D gaming or virtual reality experiences than they are 3D printing, but we only tested on the basic free tier of each app. More likely than not, if you pay for one of these services, you'll get better resulting meshes. However, even in the free tier, the meshes are pretty good. While the Miracle scanner did produce the best detail, it failed to produce a model, so you can't print anything anyway. And lastly, if you have a large sensor camera, like an APC sensor or full frame, obviously use it. You will get better results. But again, not much more compared to your smartphone. So, in conclusion, use your phone. It's really all that you need. If you have a camera, you might as well use it. Curie Engine or Polycam. Either. They're both really good. But don't forget that a simple app like Photogrammetry on a desktop produced much better results. 3D scanners? Likely not worth it, unless you're doing incredibly specialized work. Thanks again to Chris Evans for being in the studio here with us and being our model. Now, get to scanning.